Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another exciting episode of English Learning Secrets. I'm Dunya, and I'm absolutely thrilled to have you with us today. We've got a fantastic topic to cover, and I'm sure it will make a big difference in your English learning journey. So, grab a cup of coffee or tea, get comfy, and let's dive in. If you've ever found yourself struggling to describe your daily routine in English, or you just want to sound more natural and fluent when talking about everyday life, this episode is for you. By the end of this episode, you'll be able to talk confidently and easily about your daily habits, from morning to evening using real-life English phrases that everyone uses. Plus, I've got some super useful tips and tricks that will help you speak more naturally. So stay tuned, because we're about to transform the way you talk about your day in English. But before we get started, I want to hear from you, our amazing listeners. Think about your own daily routine and tell me, what's one thing you do every day that you always look forward to? Drop your answers in the comments below, and let's have a conversation together. Ready to begin? Let's go.
All right, so today's topic is all about talking about your daily routine. It's a super essential part of English because we all have routines, right? Whether it's how we wake up, what we do in the morning, how we work during the day, or how we wind down in the evening, routines are a part of our lives every single day. And here's the thing, when you learn how to talk about your daily routine in English, it's not just about the vocabulary, it's about fluency. It's about building confidence, and it's about getting comfortable with common phrases that will help you sound more natural in everyday conversations. So, let's start with a question for you all. When you talk about your daily routine, do you use the same basic phrases every time? Maybe you say, I wake up at 7, or I work until 5, or even I go to bed late. These are great ways to describe your day, but there's so much more to it. So today, we're going to go over how to talk about our routines in a way that sounds fluent, natural, and most importantly, easy for you to understand. Let's kick things off with a short dialogue between two people talking about their daily routine. As you listen, pay close attention to the vocabulary they use and how they explain different parts of their day. Ready? Hey Dunya, what does your typical morning look like? I've been trying to improve my routine lately, and I wanted to get some tips from you.
Good question, John. So I wake up pretty early, around 5 a.m. It might sound early to some, but I love having that quiet time in the morning. The first thing I do is drink a big glass of water to hydrate my body after a long night's sleep. Then I make myself a cup of coffee. Honestly, it's a must for me to kickstart the day. After that, I spend about 20 minutes praying and doing some light stretching to get my body moving. I really feel energized and ready to take on the day after that. How about you? What's your morning like?
Well, my mornings are a bit more chaotic, to be honest. I wake up at 7 a.m., but I usually press snooze a few times, so I'm kind of rushing to get out of bed. I grab some breakfast, maybe a quick smoothie or some eggs, and then I head straight to work. I don't have a lot of time for anything else, but I've been thinking about trying to wake up earlier to see if it makes a difference.
That's understandable. A lot of people feel like they don't have enough time in the morning. But honestly, even just adding 1 or 2 small habits can really improve the way you feel during the day. For example, after my morning routine, I spend a little time reading or reviewing something important for the day. I like to plan my day so I know exactly what I need to focus on. Then, I start work at around 8 a.m. and go until 2 p.m. So it's a pretty productive morning for me. What about you? How do you usually structure your day?
I usually start work at 9, but I don't have a strict schedule after that. I kind of go with the flow and do whatever needs to be done, but I feel like I get distracted sometimes. I know I need to work on improving my routine, so I can be more focused and organized throughout the day.
Definitely. A big part of creating a good routine is having clear goals and structure. After work, I make sure to take a break. Sometimes I go for a walk, or I spend time with my family. And in the evenings, I like to wind down with some reading, journaling, or even watching a show for a little relaxation before bed. How about you? How do you spend your evenings?
I usually try to relax in the evening too, but I often end up scrolling through my phone or watching videos until late at night. I know I should be more intentional about how I spend my evenings, so I can wind down better before bed.
Now that we've talked about our routines, let's break down some of the key phrases from that conversation. I want to make sure you really understand these common expressions, so you can start using them in your own routine descriptions. First up, the phrase kickstart the day. This means to get the day started with energy or excitement. For example, a cup of coffee really helps me kickstart the day. It's a great way to talk about what you do to begin your morning with energy.
Next, we use the phrase press snooze. This refers to hitting the snooze button on your alarm clock when you don't want to wake up. For example, I pressed snooze 5 times this morning before finally getting out of bed. Then there's go with the flow. This means to not have a strict plan or schedule and just do things as they come. For example, I like to go with the flow and see how my day unfolds. And finally, wind down. This is a great way to describe how you relax and prepare for sleep. You might say, I wind down by reading a book or taking a hot shower before bed. Now, it's your turn. Think about your own daily routine. Do you have any of these phrases in your routine? For example, do you kickstart your day with coffee, or do you sometimes press snooze on your alarm? Let us know in the comments, and share what part of your routine you're most proud of.
Okay, let's slow things down a bit and really practice these phrases. I'm going to say each sentence slowly, and I want you to repeat after me. This will help you get comfortable with the pronunciation and rhythm of these phrases. I wake up at 5 a.m. to kickstart the day with a cup of coffee.
I press snooze a few times before finally getting out of bed at 7.
I spend 20 minutes praying and stretching to get my body moving.
I like to go with the flow and see how my day unfolds.
At night, I wind down by reading a book or journaling. Great job. Now that we've got those phrases down, let's talk a little more about why talking about your daily routine in English can be such a powerful tool for improving your fluency. When you talk about your routine, you're not just using random words, you're practicing phrases and structures that are going to come up in almost any conversation. Whether you're chatting with a friend or talking to a colleague, the way you describe your routine is something you'll use over and over again. Plus, when you repeat the same ideas in different ways, your brain becomes more familiar with them, making it easier to remember new vocabulary.
Exactly. And let's talk about something else. Personalization. Have you ever thought about how you can make your routine more personal in English? You can start adding more details to your routine description. For example, instead of saying, I wake up at 7, you could say, I wake up at 7 and immediately check my phone for any important messages. See how adding small details makes the routine more interesting and real? This is how you'll sound more fluent.
That's such a good point, John. Personalizing your daily routine will not only make your English sound more natural, but it will also give you more practice with descriptive language. You'll get better at talking about time, places, and actions in a way that flows.
So, what about you? Do you have any special details in your routine that you could share with us? Maybe you do something unique in the morning, or you have a fun evening tradition. Let us know in the comments.
As we wrap up, I want to leave you with a few tips to keep practicing. First, try recording yourself talking about your daily routine and listen back. Are you using natural phrases? Can you add more details? The more you practice, the easier it will get. Also, don't forget to listen to English speakers in real-life situations. Whether it's podcasts, movies, or conversations, hearing how native speakers talk about their routines will help you pick up new expressions.
Exactly. Keep practicing, keep improving, and don't forget to have fun with it. Learning English is all about staying consistent and getting better little by little every day.
Our daily routines. It's something everyone can relate to, and it's a great way to practice English, especially if you're trying to improve your listening and speaking skills.
As you said, daily routines are something everyone has, and they're a perfect way to learn new vocabulary and practice English. It's all about getting comfortable with the language and understanding how we talk about everyday life.
Absolutely. So, let's start with something simple. John, can you tell me what your daily routine is like?
Sure, my routine starts early in the morning. I usually wake up around 6 a.m., and I start with a cup of coffee, which I really need to kickstart my day. After that, I take a shower, get dressed, and then I go for a short walk. I find that a little bit of exercise in the morning helps me feel more awake. Then, I have breakfast, and after that, I'm ready for work. I work from home, so it's pretty easy to get into the flow of things. How about you, Dunya?
That sounds like a nice and healthy start to your day, John. For me, my routine is a little different, but it's just as important. I wake up at 5 a.m., so I have a bit more time to prepare myself for the day. I start with some stretching, followed by reading a few pages of a book or doing a quick meditation session to center myself. Then I have my coffee, which is a must for me too. After that, I get ready and I work from 7 a.m. until about 2 p.m. I love working in the mornings because I feel most focused then. After work, I spend time with my family, read some more, and take care of personal things.
Wow, I love how structured your routine is. I think I need to work on getting a better morning routine like yours. So, listeners, now that you've heard both of our routines, we want to talk about how this kind of conversation can help you practice your English. In everyday English, we often hear answers like, I wake up at 7 a.m. or I go to bed at 10 p.m. Right, Dunya?
Exactly, John. When people talk about their daily routines, they usually give answers with simple sentences like, I wake up, I eat breakfast, I work, and I sleep. These are basic phrases that you can use to practice and understand English more easily. And because routines don't change much, they give you a great opportunity to learn how to talk about your day in English.
Right. And it's also important to notice the small differences in how people answer. For example, you might hear someone say, I usually wake up at 6 a.m. or I always drink coffee in the morning. The words usually and always are key because they help describe frequency. You can use these words to talk about things you do all the time, sometimes, or never. Let's talk about some of these key words, Dunya.
Great point, John. Words like usually, always, never, and sometimes are essential when talking about routines. Always means that you do something every day or without fail. Like, I always drink coffee in the morning. Usually means you do something most of the time. But not always. Like, I usually wake up at 6 a.m. Sometimes means it happens on occasion. Like, I sometimes go for a walk after lunch. And never means you don't do something at all. Like, I never skip breakfast.
Exactly. Those little words really help us to explain our habits and routines. Another important thing is talking about time. In daily routines, we often say things like, I wake up at 7 o'clock, or I start work at 9 o'clock. Time expressions like this are super helpful when practicing English, because they help you explain what you do and when you do it. So, when we're learning English, it's important to practice saying times, especially for your routine.
I agree. It's also a great idea to practice question and answer structures, especially when talking about daily routines. For example, John, if I asked you, what time do you wake up? How would you answer?
I would say, I wake up at 6 a.m. It's simple and clear. But let's say someone asked, what do you usually do after work? How would you answer that?
I usually spend time with my family and read. It's really important to keep things simple, but also clear, right? And if you're practicing English, this kind of question and answer helps you learn how to respond in real-life conversations.
That's exactly it. And another great way to practice is to use these phrases and structures to describe other people's routines. For example, you could say, my friend Sarah wakes up at 7:30 a.m. Or, my colleague John always eats lunch at noon. By practicing with other people's routines, you're getting used to using English in a more natural way.
Yes. It's also helpful to ask follow-up questions to keep the conversation going. So, let's say someone tells you their routine. You could ask, how long does it take you to get ready in the morning? Or, do you ever skip breakfast? These questions are great for practicing your speaking and listening skills.
That's a great point, Dunya. Asking follow-up questions helps you improve your conversation skills because it encourages deeper understanding. And the more you practice, the easier it becomes to understand and respond quickly in English. You start to pick up on common phrases and answers that people use in everyday conversations.
Exactly, John. And it's also important to mention that daily routine vocabulary can vary depending on the culture. For example, in some countries, people might take a long lunch break, while in others, it might be much shorter. But the main ideas stay the same. People wake up, eat, work, and sleep. So it's helpful to learn the basics first and then adjust based on where you are or who you're talking to.
You're so right, Dunya. And speaking of routines, let's talk about some useful vocabulary words you might hear when talking about daily activities. For example, we use get up to mean waking up and getting out of bed. We also say have breakfast or eat breakfast. Both are commonly used. Other words like take a shower, go to work, and relax are also part of common daily routines.
Right, John. Another useful word is finish, as in, I finish work at 5 p.m., or I finish my workout after 30 minutes. There's also head to, or go to, like, I head to the office at 8 a.m. These are easy-to-use phrases, and you'll hear them a lot in everyday conversations.
Absolutely. And speaking of routines, how do you feel when your routine gets disrupted, Dunya? Do you get stressed or do you handle it well?
Oh, that's a great question, John. I try to stay flexible, but I won't lie. When something disrupts my routine, it can be a bit stressful at first. But I try to remind myself that it's okay, and sometimes a change in routine can be a good thing. How about you?
I completely agree. I've noticed that when my routine changes unexpectedly, it can throw me off, but I try to focus on staying positive and adapting. It's all about finding balance, right?
Exactly. Balance is key. Well, we've talked a lot about daily routines and how they relate to learning English. Now, we'd love for our listeners to think about their own daily routines and practice answering these questions in English. What time do you wake up? What do you do after breakfast? How do you spend your evenings?
That's a great exercise. Practice saying your answers out loud. And don't forget to use the keywords we discussed today, like always, usually, and never. These little words will help make your routine sound more natural in English. Keep practicing, and soon it'll feel easier.
Exactly, John. And remember, it's all about consistency. The more you practice, the better you'll get. So, before we wrap up, let's dive a bit deeper into some fun and practical ways to practice talking about daily routines in English. John, what do you think is one of the most effective ways for our listeners to integrate these daily routine conversations into their language learning practice?
I think one of the most effective ways is to write about your daily routine in English. You could start by writing short paragraphs about what you do each day. Like, I wake up at 7 a.m., then I make breakfast, and I go to work at 9 a.m. Writing things down helps reinforce vocabulary and sentence structure. Plus, it's a great way to track your progress. If you're unsure about certain words, you can always check a dictionary or ask a teacher.
I love that idea, John. Writing about your routine will definitely help you remember key vocabulary and phrases. But even more than that, you can practice using more complex sentences over time. For example, instead of just saying, I wake up at 7 a.m., you can try something like, I wake up at 7 a.m., but I often feel tired because I didn't sleep well the night before. Adding those extra details will help you sound more natural in conversation.
That's a great point, Dunya. Adding extra details really enriches your sentences. It's also good to practice with different tenses. For example, present simple for routines, like I wake up early every day, and present continuous for things happening now, like I'm having breakfast right now. Being able to switch between tenses will make your speaking and writing even more versatile.
Exactly. And let's not forget past and future tenses. You might talk about your routines in the past, like, when I was younger, I woke up at 6 a.m. Or share your plans for the future, like, tomorrow I will wake up early and go for a run. This allows you to practice expressing time in different ways.
And it's not just about speaking and writing. Another fun activity is listening to people talk about their routines. There are so many podcasts, YouTube videos, and even TV shows where people discuss their daily lives. When you listen to these, try to catch those phrases and words we talked about earlier, like I always or I never. It's a great way to hear how native speakers use these expressions in real life.
Yes, and listening is one of the best ways to improve your understanding of the language. When you hear these phrases in context, it helps you remember them more easily. And if you're practicing listening, try repeating what you hear, just like how we did with the repeat the dialogue part in our practice. This will help you improve your pronunciation and fluency.
Definitely. And don't forget to speak your routine out loud as much as possible. You don't have to wait until you're talking to someone else. You can talk to yourself, maybe even in front of a mirror. This will help you get comfortable with speaking naturally. You can start small, like, I wake up at 7 o'clock, and then slowly add more details as you feel more confident.
Exactly. Speaking practice is crucial. And don't worry about making mistakes. Mistakes are part of the learning process. The goal is to practice consistently. And over time, you'll feel more confident when speaking with others. If you're practicing with a language partner or teacher, ask them to help you with corrections so you can improve your pronunciation and sentence structure.
Right. Mistakes are actually a sign that you're challenging yourself. And that's how you grow. And speaking of practice, let's do a little challenge for our listeners. We're going to give you some questions about daily routines. And we want you to try answering them in English. Ready, Dunya?
I'm ready. Okay, listeners, here's your challenge. Try to answer these questions in English. You can write your answers down or say them out loud. Whatever works best for you. And remember, take your time.
First question. What time do you usually wake up in the morning? Try to answer in a full sentence like, I usually wake up at 7 a.m.
Second question. What do you usually have for breakfast? You can say something like, I usually have eggs and toast. Or if you prefer something different, that's okay too.
Third question. What time do you go to work or school? You can say, I go to work at 9 a.m. or I start school at 8:30 a.m.
Fourth question. What do you do after you finish work or school? You could say, after work, I usually relax and watch TV, or I like to exercise after school.
And the last question, what time do you go to bed? You could answer, I go to bed at 10 p.m. or I sleep at 11 p.m.
Great job, listeners. Take a moment to listen to your answers. Do you feel comfortable saying them out loud? If you can say your answers easily, that means you're getting better at understanding and speaking English. Keep practicing. The more you practice your daily routine in English, the more fluent you'll become.
That's right, Dunya. It's all about consistency and confidence. The more you practice, the easier it gets. So, keep up the great work, and don't forget to review your answers, and try to add more details over time. You can always try answering the questions in a different way each time you practice.
Before we go, let's remind our listeners that daily routines are a great topic to start practicing English with. Not only does it help you with vocabulary and sentence structures, but it also gives you a chance to understand how language works in real, everyday situations. Plus, you're talking about your life, which makes it fun and personal.
Exactly. And don't forget, practice makes perfect. The more you immerse yourself in English by listening, speaking, writing, and even thinking in English, the faster you'll improve. So, keep practicing and challenging yourself.
John, I think it's important to touch on one more thing that can really help our listeners with their English learning journey: setting goals. A lot of people struggle to keep up with their language learning because they don't have clear goals. Do you have any advice on how our listeners can set achievable goals when it comes to improving their English?
Great point, Dunya. Setting goals is crucial for staying motivated and on track. I would recommend that listeners break down their big goals into smaller, more manageable ones. For example, instead of saying, I want to be fluent in English, try setting a goal like, I want to be able to talk about my daily routine without hesitation. Then, make smaller goals each week to help you reach that bigger goal. You can set a goal to learn 10 new words related to routines, or practice speaking about your routine for 10 minutes every day.
I agree, John. Breaking big goals into smaller steps makes them feel more achievable. And don't forget to celebrate your small successes. If you manage to speak for 10 minutes without stopping, or if you use a new phrase correctly in a conversation, give yourself a little pat on the back. This positive reinforcement will help keep you motivated.
Absolutely. Celebrating the small victories is key to keeping your momentum. Another tip I have is to make your goals specific and measurable. For example, if your goal is to improve your vocabulary, you can say, I will learn and use 5 new words related to daily routines each week. Having something measurable gives you a clear target to aim for.
That's a really good tip, John. Another thing to keep in mind is to stay flexible. Sometimes life gets in the way, and you might not be able to practice as much as you want. It's okay. The important thing is to get back on track as soon as you can. Language learning is a journey, and there will be ups and downs.
Exactly. Flexibility is important. If you miss a day or two, don't be too hard on yourself. Just get back to your practice and keep moving forward. And remember, it's about progress, not perfection.
Yes, progress is the key. Now, for our listeners, if you're struggling with how to practice your routine in English, here's a little homework for you. Think about one part of your daily routine that you can describe in detail. Maybe it's your morning coffee, your exercise routine, or how you get ready for work. Write or say 5 to 6 sentences about that part of your routine in English. And then, try to use one new word or phrase you've learned today.
Yes, that sounds like a great challenge. And don't forget to try saying it out loud, even if you're alone. The more you practice speaking, the more natural it will sound. Plus, it'll help you feel confident when you talk to others in English.
And while you're doing this, keep in mind that language learning is all about consistency and repetition. If you say your routine in English every day, it'll start to feel more natural. So, keep speaking, keep practicing, and before you know it, you'll be using those phrases without even thinking about it.
You've got it. Keep practicing every day. And soon, it'll feel like second nature. You'll notice how much easier it is to describe your routine in English. And remember, every little bit of practice helps.
So, let's recap what we've learned today. We've talked about how to describe your daily routine in English, how to make your routine sound natural, and how important it is to practice regularly. We've also shared some tips for setting goals, breaking them down into manageable steps, and celebrating your progress along the way.
And don't forget, you can practice by writing, speaking, listening, and even thinking in English. The more you immerse yourself in the language, the faster you'll improve. So, go ahead and try out some of the tips and challenges we've mentioned today, and let us know how it goes.
Exactly. We believe in you, and we know that with consistent practice, you'll make great progress in your English learning journey. Remember, it's not about perfection. It's about progress and enjoying the process. Keep learning, keep practicing, and most importantly, have fun with it. Everyone, we can't wait to hear about your progress. Keep practicing, and remember that learning English is a journey you're on for life. Thanks so much for tuning in today. I hope this episode gave you some great tools to talk about your daily routine with ease. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to leave a comment, share your thoughts, and let us know how you're going to use these tips in your own routine. Also, don't forget to check out our other episodes for more helpful English tips.
And make sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. We'll see you next time.
Take care, and keep practicing your English every day. Bye for now.